In this video, we will continue our discussion of algorithms with the assignment let equal. The algorithms we discussed in our previous video all required the variables used inside of the algorithm to be passed in as inputs. However, with the let equal assignment, we are able to create and assign values to variables inside the algorithm without them being passed in as inputs. Consider the following example algorithm, which accepts an integer a as input. Using the let equal assignment, we create the variable b and assign the value of 2a plus 5 to the variable b, which is then returned. So, for the input a equals 1, the variable b is created and assigned the value of 2 times 1 plus 5, which is 7, which is then returned as output. Now let's try a slightly more involved example. Consider the following algorithm, which accepts as input an integer a. Let's run this algorithm with the input a equals 2. Using the let equal assignment, our first step is to create the variable b and assign it the value of a times a. Since the current value of a is 2, b will be assigned the value 2 times 2, which is 4. Our next step is to create the variable c and assign it the value of b times a. Since b is equal to 4 and a is equal to 2, then c will be assigned the value 4 times 2, which is 8. Next, we create the variable d and assign it the value c times a. Since c is equal to 8 and a is equal to 2, the variable d will be assigned the value 8 times 2, which is 16. Finally, we create the variable e and assign it the value d times a. Since d is equal to 16 and a is equal to 2, the variable e is assigned the value 16 times 2, which is 32, which is then returned as output. So, for the input a equals 2, the value 32 is returned. For some additional practice, try running this algorithm again with the input a equals -1. Since there are a lot of variables running around here, be sure to define each one and assign its value carefully. Here is our solution to this example. Did you also get -1 as your output? In the previous examples, we showed how we can use the let equal assignment to create new variables. However, we can also use the let equal assignment to redefine existing variables by assigning new values to them. For example, consider the following algorithm, which accepts as input an integer I. Let's run this algorithm with the input I equals 2 to demonstrate how this reassignment process works. In the first step of our algorithm, we redefine the variable I by assigning it the value I plus 2. The I on the right side of the let equals assignment symbol represents the current value of I, which is 2. So, after step 1, the variable I has been redefined to take on the value 2 plus 2, which is 4. Step 2 of our algorithm redefines the variable I again by assigning it the value I plus 3. Remember, at the end of step 1, the current value of I is now 4. So in step 2, the variable I takes on the value 4 plus 3, which is 7. The third step of our algorithm redefines the variable I again to take on the value I times I. Remember, at the end of step 2, the current value of I is now 7. So, after step 3, the value of I will be 7 times 7, which is 49, which is returned as output in step 4. So, for the input I equals 2, the output is 49. Let's do another example. Consider the algorithm below, which accepts the integers a and b as input and combines the let equal assignment with the if-then statement, which we covered in a previous video. Let's run this algorithm with the inputs a equals 2 and b equals 3. The first step is to create the variable I and assign it the value a minus b. Since a is equal to 2 and b is equal to 3, after step 1, the variable I will have the value 2 minus 3, which is equal to -1. Next, we create the variable j and assign it the value b minus a. Since b is equal to 3 and a is equal to 2, after step 2, the variable j will be assigned the value 3 minus 2, which is +1. Now we come to our first if-then statement. Remember that we only follow the instructions after the word then if the conditional I is greater than j is true. In this case, -1 greater than 1 is false, so we do not follow the instructions after the word then, skip step 3, and proceed to step 4. In step 4, we have another if-then statement. Before we follow the instructions after the word then, we first need to compare I and j. -1 is less than or equal to +1, so we follow the instructions after the word then and redefine the variable I to take on the value I plus a. The current value of I is -1, and the current value of a is 2. So after step 4, the variable I will have the new value, -1 plus 2, which is equal to +1, which is returned as output. So, for the inputs a equals 2 and b equals 3, the output is +1. For some extra practice, pause the video now and try running this algorithm again with the inputs a equals 4 and b equals -1. For the inputs a equals 4 and b equals -1, the algorithm returns I equals +4. If you did not get this as your output, be sure to go back and check your variable definitions and values carefully.